Landscape Manifesto Point 25. We must put the 21st century city in nature rather than put nature in the city. We are in a moment in which we have passed from the 20th century belief that cities and human beings are outside of nature. And it was in the last part of the 20th century that we reintegrated on it and began to see ourselves as part of nature. But while that concept was at work, we were in fact considering that we had to bring from the countryside a piece of nature to plunk in the city. And so our concepts of parks were consisting in precisely that. Now, once upon a time, there was a site that considered itself a piece of city. And though it was destined to become a park, it decided that all by itself, it could tell a very different urban story. And so it started to first look at the city and say, but nature is there. There is rain, there is clouds, there is sunshine, and there is volunteer vegetation that breaks through the cracks in the pavement and through the walls. But that nature is not activated. And so it saw itself as something that could be part of parking lots. It could be part of walls of cities. It could be part of the roofs of all buildings. And it could be part also of railroad yards and systems of transportation. Not as the ubiquitous lawn, but rather as a mix of all kinds of vegetation, but a vegetation that was activated, because all of these could in fact be reducing the great temperatures that the heat island of cities produce. Could also clean the air, clean the water, retain water in moments of the peak of storms, so that they delayed the water running through drainage and having the rivers flood. And it could be that done in cities, in new parts of cities, as this in Bilbao, on which I've worked on. But it could also be part of the new growth of cities as a system of infrastructure and public space. And so in this suburb of Minneapolis, a new suburb, with a very high water table and constant floods, a surface drainage system, in fact, could become a public park that was also giving pleasure to its population. This is some form of activation of nature. But this site, destined to become a park, said, I could also be a floating landscape. And by that, I could protect the edges of cities from the surges of storms. Or I could become a floating marsh, since the marshes, which can also protect the edges of cities, are beginning to disappear because of the rise of the sea level. Or I could also be a system of urban agriculture. Or I could gather the energy of tides or of currents. I could clean the water. I could foster life in the water through the root system below this floating island. And here to test these claims by this site are two very recent floating landscapes, one in the Delaware River, launched on September 21, and another one in the Gowanus Canal that was launched on September 28. Now, the benefits to cities of such a reinterpretation of the role of nature and the way that it can function in cities begins to make cities, rather than something outside of nature, something that begins to be able to take the rhythms of life and change over time. Thank you.
Stay up if you don't mind, Rose.
So we missed a cue backstage, but this was supposed to happen in the middle of Diana's
So
talk.
this is the city coming into nature. Thank you.
Thank you.